Well, excellent. Thank you so much for that lovely welcome and introduction. My name is Russell, and I am an addict and an alcoholic. And I came to Pavilion February 15th, 2018.
Mhm.
Yeah. So almost 3.5 years ago. And when I came, that I could, if I was to have told my story anytime sooner than probably now, that it would have been that I was a victim and that I was just scared person, and I don't know how any of this happened to me, and I'm completely innocent. But I think through some, well earned therapy points and school and my treatment at Pavilion, I'm able to give a more accurate story of how I actually got here. And that's where I'm going to start, is like at the beginning. And so if you can see this was me when I was 6 years old. And this little boy had so many hopes and dreams. And uh, that I was raised in Mississippi. And that was the year that one of my educators had started sending notes home to my mom that I was smart and that I was very talkative, but that I had a habit of wandering off once I finished my work. And this was the first documented case, like first documented documentation that I have of like where my ADHD was being recorded. And this is really kind of like a lot of my story in the beginning, was that I had a habit of like, I would finish my work, but then I would go and I would share my lunch with the janitor. And so, it was kind of frowned on because the teacher wouldn't know where I was. And so things like that just kept occurring throughout the school year. And I was just a wanderer. I would just wander off. I like to go talk to people, and older people especially interested me. I just wanted to be around people that would talk to me. And I didn't really like kids my own age because I didn't really like, it wasn't much of a conversation. And I really liked people to just talk to me and treat me like I was there in a person. I was the youngest of four kids, and I felt a lot of invisibility at home. So school, I just like, oh man, I was off to the races. And that my ADHD was getting more and more progressive as I got older. By the time I turned 12, my dad was very much an alcoholic at this point. Very, he was about to lose his job, and his alcoholism was taking like really this hard turn in our lives because he was very stressed out. Well, he ended up losing his job that year, and we were completely, I mean, just poor people from Mississippi. And my dad had to quit drinking because we went on food stamps. And so my dad became this, what you hear of all the time, of the dry drunk, who is just very aggressive and angry and mad. And my dad saw that I was this young person, that I had this like weird, eccentric, these weird, kind of things that I would do, I was getting away with a lot of things because I was smart, but at the same time, I was not obeying all the rules. And so my dad, in his, to solve his own discomfort, my dad decided he was going to fix me. And this took this really dark turn in my life around that time, because at that point, um, everything became where I was flying under the radar, where he would get drunk every night. He was now very aware of all of my behavior and very angry about all of my behavior. And physical abuse started at that time, where it was just very, like, everything became very violent at that point in my life. That there was no safe space and there was no place for me to feel okay. Um, it was okay for me to be ridiculed. It was okay for me to be punched. I would be starved out during the summertime, worked, and it was just, everything was in this effort of him trying to control this ADHD. That, a little bit of Adderall might have helped some matters, but unfortunately, that was just not a thing in 1982 when this was all happening. it was like those kind of like medications were for extreme behavior and not for somebody that was just, um, somebody that was, still making good grades in school. This was something that was just like something that could be punished out of a child. And I started internalizing this, that I couldn't figure out why I was always getting punished. So this punishment started internalizing that I was, not as good as my siblings and that I was not worthy as my siblings. And, that I was just this unattractive, ugly child. That started translating as I went to when during school as well. That I couldn't take a joke, and I started, just getting worse and worse with my ADHD. I was just, if people would pick at me, it would just compound, and I just was getting. And the bullies, a bully in school, they see that weak chicken and they're going to start pecking at it. So that's my weak chicken hand motion, just so you know. Like if I start going, that's the weak chicken. So that I started getting the weak chicken treatment at school, um, and that just led to more internalization of that I'm this horrible person. As I finally made it out of school, um, suicide attempts entail, I'm just really excited to get away from where I lived, but um, going into the military wasn't an option because, as you can tell, I'm a little bit on the fancy side, and that it was kind of, this was before don't ask, don't tell, even. So that military was not an option, and there was no college money for me because it's like my parents, and they wouldn't co-sign for anything because I was just, my dad had kind of given up on me at this point. My dad had told my mom to not talk to me, and my dad didn't talk to me, and no one talked to me at home. And I was completely alone when I was at home. And I didn't have anyone at school that I talked to. So there was this time that I went 2 months without saying a word to anybody. And it was just like, I just remember just being like, hello, I'm here. And like my family just being like, so? And I'm like, haven't said a word in 2 months. And like they were just like, haven't noticed. And so just kept on trucking. So I kind of buried myself into church. And, I was really like hated myself for being gay because this aspect of religion was going to be the only thing that saved me from this horrible existence of my family and living there my whole life. That, and all I could do was like try to pray this gay away. And so that's what my goal was, is I'm going to try to pray this gay away. And that they were going to send me on a mission. And I went on a 2-year mission for that church, telling people that being gay was a sin, and that in that in its turn was its own kind of torture, because I'm having to tell people that that I'm going to hell, basically, because I'm this flawed, horrible person. Well, as soon as that 2-year commitment was up, I took off like a bandit, and I found it incredibly difficult to talk to people. I had just really no social skills. Except unless you wanted to talk about Jesus. And then I could talk to you about some Jesus at that point. I could talk to you in Spanish, Russian. I could talk to you in anything. I was good at it. And, but when it came to just like having like, life skills, I really had none. I was really unprepared for life. But the only thing I knew was that if I drank, I didn't feel as awkward. And when I drank, I all of a sudden had things to talk about that didn't make people uncomfortable. And I loved it. I am not going to lie. When I started drinking, I thought I was the king of the town. I felt like I could do no wrong. And I was making friends for the first time in my life, people that seemed to like me for me. And that, but the thing was, is that I just was never me. I was this like clown. I was this persona that I was putting on for people so that they would like me. And I didn't want people to know about how I was raised because there was so much shame. And I was so afraid that people would eventually see me as that person that all those other people, my family included, saw me as. And I was so scared that people would see me as that person that I would just lie about so much stuff. I would tell people lies about everything. You could ask me what color the sky was, and I would say it was green. Anything so that you would not see that flawed person that everybody else had seen for so many years. Well, it's like when you're not being authentic with yourself, when you're not being authentic with anyone, and it's like people would start catching on to lies, and I would just move. I didn't care. I'm like, I would leave all my stuff and I would just start anew somewhere else. I went from Albuquerque to New Mexico to Chicago to Atlanta to Florida. I was just running from myself because I didn't want people to actually know me. Because once they started to know who I was, then it was like the jig was up. And it's like I would all of a sudden be the fraud and I would be revealed as this horrible monster that they were somehow able to ignore. Well, in these travels, that me and my mom had started regaining a relationship, and um, it became very dear to me. And I started just like kind of imagining that I could be loved by my family. Well, that I let my parents know that this is who I was, that I'm a gay man and everything, and that went fine. Well, I mean, not fine. I mean, but minor hiccups here and there. But I was dating someone, and they went home to help their mom during a hurricane, and they got killed in a car accident. Well, I called my mom for support, and my mom was like, "Well, that's what you get when you're gay." And so I was like, and so there it was. I cut my mom off. I was no longer talking to my mom from there on for a while anyway. But it was that where I dipped my toe into the pool of crystal meth, and I decided that that was just a much better idea than what I was doing. I mean, this alcoholism was killing me so slowly, and that I need something just a little bit quicker. So I started messing around with that, and um, it consumed me. I'm going to be honest. I really was eaten up with it. Everything about it was just this like enticement of like, I could be them, I could be this group, I could be with those people. And I was so damaged on the inside that I would allow anybody to treat me any kind of way. And I would allow people to, because everything was what I was worth. Anything that you could give me was what I was worth. And people would, I mean, treat me so cruelly, and they would steal from me and they would take what I had. And it was just, I just lapped it up. Anything was better than being alone. And as it went, as time went on, that I started to turn away people that were treating me good, because I could only be around people that would actually do drugs with me the way that I like to do drugs. And so when you're around only that group of people, you only have a very small pool of people that could actually treat you right. And none of those people will treat you right when everybody is acting the same janky way with the same janky behavior. I don't know. It's just like it was a fool's errand to try. However, I did meet my husband, and we met, and it was during a dry time where we were both out of drugs and we were both just hanging out, and we both got to know each other really well. And we got to know each other for like a month before we started introducing drugs back into the relationship. But that was probably the best month that I had with my husband for many years. Things just started going downhill after that. But we, ended up moving in together, and we dated. This was in 2005, and oh gosh, I was 32 years old. And we were just going through, just we got a house together. We were making things work. He was a well, yeah, he's a doctor. So that, and yeah, I can say that without ruining his anonymity. You don't know him. So anyway, that we were through, he had plenty of disposable income. And so our addiction took off. We went to all the best parties. We went to all the best events. We went on great vacations. And at the beginning, but as time kept going, we kept getting that circle of like all these possibilities was shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because we couldn't go anywhere because we couldn't be away from drugs too long. And we couldn't do anything. Like all of these wonderful things that we could have had throughout all these years were just disappearing and just going away. And he has two daughters from a previous marriage. And one of them got married. We went to, it was a like this wedding in Colombia, South America. And we were there, and it's like we never left the hotel the whole time we were there. And it's like we missed all of the different events for her wedding. We were so rude. We were so rude to his daughter. And she, 2 years later, she has a little boy. And we are like, it's the first year, like his first Christmas. He's 1 year old, and we had seen him the previous Christmas. And we had missed a whole year of this little boy's life. And that was kind of like when we go, what are we doing? And this was like, I mean, we'd been together, probably about 11 years at this point, because it's been 15 years now that we've been together. And, but the thing was, is that we had already been arrested together. We had been released together. I had to go to testify at a DEA trial in Detroit. We had like, I mean, we had had some pretty big tragedies in our life where we should have had the wake-up call. But luckily, it was just that we saw that this little boy was meant a lot to us. And we were going to miss his whole life if we kept this up. So luckily, my husband, he had the guts and also kind of the court order, but we always say it was his guts, but it was a court order. He had to go into treatment, and he had a 4-day where they were going to, assess the situation. I don't know if any of you are in medical that are here in like this, but it's never a 4-day assessment for medical. They keep you the whole 3 months for sure. And so that's what happened. And he got kept for the whole 3 months, but they told me it was going to be 6 weeks at first. And so I was like, well, I'll just hold down the fort. You'll be out in no time. We'll go back to business as usual. And so then, a few weeks later, they're telling me that he won't be able to come home if I'm there. And I was like, that's insane. And so I decided that I would go into treatment just because I wanted to be back with him. I was extremely codependent, but they gave me the name of Pavillon, and I decided I would come to Pavillon. And I liked the waterfall on the advertisement. I thought that was so beautiful. And I was like, if any place can like give me a little rest and relaxation, they've got acupuncture. It'll be like spa days every day. Perfect. I mean, I could take a break. I mean, I've gone like 15 years addicted to crystal meth, and 10 years before that as a heavy alcoholic. I could use a break, 6-week break. That should be fine. Then I'll be all cleaned out and I'll be okay. Well, so I came to Pavillon, and I want to show you. This is my intake picture. And so I was a broken little man when I came into this joint. And it was, I just remember being so incredibly scared because all of my identity at this point was so interwoven with my worth, who I was, what I could do was all interwoven with uh, me being an alcoholic and an addict. I had no idea what would be left once those were taken away. And I was petrified that I would end up being that rotted person that everybody thought I was when I was young. I was so scared of that. Excuse me. So, but I mean, I'm not going to say that it was roses going through treatment because I had hair fire after hair fire. That's what they kept calling it. Every time, every other day, it seemed like something would set me off, something would make me so mad. I would just be like furious and just like going, Greg, through primary halls, like just needing him to like, talk me off another ledge because it was like one thing after another was just like so just so angry in every sense inside of me because I couldn't figure out how to breathe hardly without drugs and alcohol, and I didn't know what I would do. But I just kept doing what I was doing. It ended up being probably one of the best times of my life. Just people that I met and that connections that I made. And I remember that the first meeting that I went to in Pavilion, that they were handing out white chips. And everybody was like nudging me, like, this is your first meeting here, go get a white chip. And I was like, are y'all crazy? I have seen so many documentaries about cults. I mean, it's like, there is no way I am going to join up and get hoodwinked and end up like giving away all my life savings to this, you know, AA, whatever that is. And so, but for my 30th day, when I got my red chip there at Pavilion, I remember everybody was cheering. It was the first time in my life I remembered I could ever think of somebody like when people were actually cheering for something good in my life. There were people that actually were rooting for me to succeed in this life. Not because of what I could give them or what I had or what they could get from me or whatever, but because they actually saw me for me and wanted me to be happy. I'm sorry. It was just one of these moments that it's like, that I hold so dear. And I love chip ceremonies when you see people, and it's like, I love to cheer people on because it's like, I know that there's other people that feel that same way, that feel like that, that they've never had anybody in their corner. I'm sorry, I'll choke it up. So anyway, I make it through Pavilion, and my husband is in sober living, as like he's being told to go. He's doing everything right. He's just Mr. Recovery. And it's really pissing me off because it's like a lot of this stuff just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like, the whole, like all these little like slogans and, blah, blah, blah about everything. There's a slogan for everything. And it would irritate me to no end. And it's like, I would love to like semantically pick them apart and be like, one day at a time, duh. How else are you gonna live? It's not like you could do two at a time, just stuff like that at the beginning. My husband's just like eating it up. I mean, he's just like, gobble, gobble, gobble. I love these sayings, gobble, 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 big book, big book, big book. And I'm just like, ugh. But I kept coming back and I kept trying. And so because my husband was still in sober living, I didn't want to go home and be by myself and just end up being back where I was. So I went to sober living too, because it was the safest road for me. So there we both are. He's in Alabama and I am in Greenville, South Carolina. And we're both doing sober living. And sober living is a crap show. I mean, it is definitely just like, it it's a whole bunch of people that are usually around 18 to 20 who are like, have absolutely no uh, no idea what responsibility looks like and have a lot of disposable income or daddy's money or a brand new job that they haven't had in forever. And it's like all this freedom, and it's like they just don't know what to do with it. So a lot of it for a 44-year-old man at the time was just like navigating being in chaos without becoming chaos. And that was a lot trickier than I ever could have imagined. That to see all this mess going on around me and to be okay with it, that was like the lesson that I tell sponsees now is it's not about to when you can't take any more. It's about to when you see it happening all around you and it just doesn't affect you anymore. That your sobriety, your serenity is just not affected by what other people choose to do. And that's when you know you've graduated from sober living. And so that's why I love to tell my sponsees, because it's like, it's really difficult to navigate that life. But it's like also, it's something that you learn these wonderful life lessons that are going to help you throughout. As I left sober living, me and my husband, that we moved from Mississippi to Asheville, we had, there was a young lady that was in extended care, the women's extended care, at the same time that I was, that we found each other on social media, and she was a realtor, and she actually sold me my house that I met in Pavilion. And so just wonderful connections of people, and that um, moved up here. There's wonderful meetings here in Asheville. And we really, I worked my steps in Mississippi before we left because we wanted to hit a year before we moved, because we're trying to do every single thing that's on the list of things that they tell you not to do. And one of them is not to move within the first year of your sobriety. So we both waited till we were completely 1 year sober, and then we moved up here in April. We found the house a little earlier, but we were definitely here after we had both made our year mark. And so we worked our steps in Mississippi, but we really found our tribe here in Asheville. And the love and outpouring of support is amazing. And what Leslie was telling us at the beginning about keep going to meetings till you find the meetings that you love, that you can find your tribe. And it's true. I mean, it's like there's meetings for young, old. I mean, there's meetings for hippies. There's meetings for, I mean, I always say, like, goth girls that listen to country music, there's a meeting for. You can find anything that you really want to find a meeting for, especially now in the age of Zoom. I mean, it's like really opened up so many like meetings with different subsets of people that you can find definitely your tribe of sober people. It's been a wonderful journey so far. We now have a second grandson. Um, we are actually, I came back to the house to do this, but we've been taking care of the grandsons for the last couple weeks, and having so much fun and enjoyable time. When we moved up here to Asheville, though, there was this element that George had been able to go to a Crystal Meth Anonymous meeting when we were in Birmingham, because that's where he was in sober living. And when I visited, we went to a Crystal Meth Anonymous meeting. When we moved here, there was no meeting like that. And so we kept running into people who had that same history as we did. And so me and George, well, that's his name. Now you know, secret's out. We decided that we were going to start a CMA meeting. And so we found people, we started it, and we now have a bunch of people that are now like coming week after week. That's been going on for going to be 2 years next week, like next September. So I'm very proud of that. And I do a lot of like service work. I have served as the GSR for 1 year with that CMA group. And then I'm now on as the North Carolina delegate for CMA as a national whole. So I find service very rewarding, and it's like I also do a lot of H&I work, taking meetings into hospitals and institutions, and that's also very rewarding to me. Um, I think that the main point of like, but I'm not gonna say the main point because there's so many great points of like this journey, but a lot of the things that I went through, especially in early sobriety, that were so hard and so traumatic, because crystal meth is like it's a hell of a drug, and I don't recommend it. Just between me and you, like don't try it. But that the hardest thing is that it's like it brings so much psychosis, and that even getting sober, that there's times when there's psychosis and it just feels like, will this ever end? But there's times where I'm able to help people through that journey because I've been through it. I know what it feels like to go through that, and I know that it gets better, and that my life can be helpful to other people's lives, and I can serve and make the journey a little easier for other people. And for this little Mississippi boy who didn't feel like he had a place, he now has people that love him and respects him. And I'm even a pop to a couple of those little boys. And I really cherish that probably title the most. But I'm now in school and I'm going to be a social worker pretty soon. And I'm really excited about that too. It's wonderful to be able to give and to do esteemable things and to find that self esteem in those. And I guess that's about it. But thank you.